Okay. Hey, it should be working now. That was weird. Now the question is, if you say something,
Ah,
there we go.
yeah, it's working.
It was just some weird default issue.
I can, yeah,
It was just some
I can hear
weird
it. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, we're okay. So if anybody's watching now, we're doing boomer tech stuff. This obviously my first live stream, and OBS was not behaving.
Uh-huh.
But as it stands out, we have Laurel watching over the world.
Hi. So is that like why doesn't it have like an icon for you or something, or is that what the world is? Like if you wanted to appear on there with me, would you be where the world is?
Yeah, I could just put up another icon or whatever. I mean,
Okay.
it's that kind of stuff is easy. I've recorded videos with OBS and made that stuff work before, but I had to go
Okay.
render a orbiting scene just for this.
Yeah. If anybody's wondering why there's two black lines on either side of me, that's actually my setup. That doesn't have anything to do with Elder
Ah,
Caro.
yeah, I could actually crop that if you wanted,
If you like, you can.
but I don't see a actually no, I don't see a reason to.
Yeah, I don't think it's distracting.
Yeah, no, no.
I was just commenting to people that that's actually my camera.
Oh,
That's why it does that.
but yeah, I mean, do you want to do like if I want to show you something? Do you want to do screen share through Zoom, or do you want to just look at the YouTube channel?
I I'm looking at the live stream, so I can do either one. I can switch over to the Zoom, but if you want to do it here, I don't know which one would work better, so I don't have a preference.
Yeah, I think the only issue is that there's like as you say, a 6 second delay from the time it gets there to the time it the audience hears it.
Right, right. So if you wanted to show me something, yeah, you would need to show it to me on Zoom.
Right, right.
I hope the people who are watching are enjoying our shop talk here.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, we're boomer teching.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do have. Let me see here. I'm going to show you. I talked about this before we hit live. Let's see here. Share. What do I want to share? Here we go. And
All
let
right,
me.
I'm back over on Zoom.
Okay, and let me show the audience what I'm showing you.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, it actually does have the video.
Okay, I
Still,
don't see anything.
you don't see anything. Okay.
Not on Zoom. Let me go back to, oh, well, I can see it on YouTube, but I can't see it on Zoom.
Right, right. So you can see Kamala Harris just put this out like a week or two ago.
Uh-huh.
And it says the short table here is Climate Equity Act of 2019.
Yes.
So it's got climate, it's got equity. You know it's going to be a train wreck. And I obviously don't think people would be interested in reading through the entire thing.
How many pages is it?
17.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's not too bad. I mean,
yeah, not for legislation, anyways.
right.
But if you scroll down, I took some notes so that I can go to some specific spots. So
Mm-hmm.
here we're in the definitions, and it's got frontline community. The term frontline community includes those communities and populations that have experienced systemic socioeconomic disparities, environmental injustice, and other forms of injustice, including low income communities, indigenous communities, and communities of color. Those communities and populations that are most vulnerable will be most adversely impacted by environmental and climate injustice and inequitable climate actions, including, and it goes through a whole bunch of different things. And then down at the end, it says the women, youth, and all descendants thereof are part of the communities described in the subparagraphs. So, as I said before the stream, you can already kind of tell that it's a fuck whitey bill.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite wrapped my head around the entirety of what it does, but it seems like it sets up an office. Um, yeah, let me go down. It says, yeah, an office on climate and environmental equity, or climate and environmental justice is what it sets up, where
Mhm.
basically every agency that has regulatory power has to certify that a new regulation either won't have an impact on the environment, or if it will, it has to do research into what impact it will have on these frontline communities. And white
It just
people,
makes it harder to get anything done.
yeah, and from that standpoint, I like it. but but it's like everything is about how these frontline communities are the only groups that are going to have any input into it, and it's like, come on, guys. I could bring up another document that this reminds
It's
me
just
of.
a messed up way of viewing society, is that all the focus is put on all of the focus and the considerations are put on the people who are contributing the least. That is not a way to run a successful society. You have to reward the people who are contributing the most, not
Right.
just the people who have the most, the people who are contributing the most. And those communities that they're describing are not. They are not contributing the most. And that doesn't mean you say, well, fuck them. We're just not even going to pay attention to them because they're not contributing. No, no,
Right.
no. We're still going to pay attention to them. We're still going to try to help them. We don't want to see children starve. We don't. But there's got to be some balance. And it shouldn't be helping people at the cost of demonizing people who are contributing a lot to society. This is the way to run a society into the ground.
Right. Well, and apparently Ocasio-Cortez had something to do with this too. And,
Oh, of course.
you know, when you read the way it leaves out the whole oppressor versus oppressed, but it kind of has it implicitly in there.
Uh-huh.
But if you want to see another document that kind of deals with things in the same way, just go read the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Right.
come on.
Right.
It's, I can't.
There's so much of social equity, social justice, social equity, when they're talking about redistribution. They're always presuming that when they make all of these changes, that production will remain the same. But that's not how it works. When the people who are contributing more, maybe they're working harder, maybe they're just working differently. When they see that it's not getting them anywhere, when they see that working harder, when they see that getting an advanced education, et cetera, does nothing for them, they won't do it. If one person is doing like if you're living in a group house with 4 other people, and you're the one who's always doing the dishes,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're going to say, no one else is doing the dishes. I'm the only one who does them. I'm going on strike. I'm not doing the dishes anymore. And that means your dishes are going to be dirty too, but you're like, yeah, but fuck it. Everybody's just mooching off of me. I'm on strike. And then the dishes don't get done. And that can happen on a societal level. I heard that for, there's some sort of rainbow meeting. I don't know that that's what it's called, but the rainbow meetup or something. And it's all of these hippies go out and they have like a week in the middle of the woods somewhere where they're supposed to live in harmony, et cetera.
Yeah, they
have like, they did things communally, like everybody gives resources and they share. Okay, so they started, surprise, started running into the problem of people showing up with nothing, not giving anything. Because the idea is if you have more, give more. If you have less, give less. So people were showing up with nothing and they weren't doing any work and they weren't contributing at all. And they expected to share equally.
Yeah, no. They had this not too far away from me a few years ago. And I remember everybody was like, what are they going to do with all the human waste?
Right.
Oh,
so
man.
so it eventually started to break down. Eventually the people who were contributing more were like, screw this, we're not giving anything. And they started going on strike. They're like, we're not doing any of the work in the camp until these other people do some work. And nothing was getting done. And the people who were doing more called the other people drainbows, because it was a rainbow thing. They're the drainbows. And it became a real issue. And so work just came to a grinding halt because people said, I'm not supporting these moochers. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the work for them to do nothing. And it just completely broke down.
Yeah, no, I mean that is going to happen here if the Kamala, I don't really think Kamala Harris cares about these frontier communities. I think she just is doing it for power. I mean, I'm that cynical about her that I think she's just a terrible human being. But
she just wants power.
Yeah, but I mean, when you go looking at, I mean, if you go and actually read the actual text of the Green New Deal itself, it was clear, this is oppressor versus oppressed, and I'm like, do do you not understand that there's going to be like free helicopter rides for communists when this gets started? I mean, it's
Yeah. And the funny thing is, this is everything Jordan Peterson said would happen.
mhm.
He's like, well, this is the beginning, and it's going to keep going from here, and it's going to get worse and worse. And people are like, you're crazy. What's happening right now is not going to lead to masses of people being killed. And he's like, yeah, it
Yes,
will.
yes, it
And
will.
moving further and further along, it's exactly what he said would happen.
Yeah, no, I'm with Jordan Peterson on that. Just because I know where their ideology comes from. I've looked at the whole postmodernism, and I looked at what's it called, critical theory, and
Uh-huh.
as far as I can tell, that's mostly gobbledygook, except for you only use things that you can use for social change. If it's not useful for social change, don't bother with it. If it is, leverage it as hard as you can, basically.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's all gobbledygook. It's like this doesn't mean anything. It's
They're just not going to get us anywhere.
no, no. And like I say, it used to be bourgeoisie and proletariat. Now it's white guys and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like
And their sympathizers.
right, right. And it's no good. It's not good. Well, and
Well, we've got a number of people watching. Everybody feel free to jump into the conversation in the super chat or the chat whenever you like.
yeah, I am never going to monetize this channel. So
You're not even going to try?
no, no.
Yeah.
The stuff I talk about, YouTube will never promote, like ever.
Right, right. I got in at the very tail end, I think, of when they were promoting people, and I benefited from that for a short period of time. A
Right.
couple of my videos got hit the algorithms, and then now none of them do. None of them do. So I do still have, I had a small group of people before they changed that, and I still do get new subscribers. People do
Right.
share my videos, but it's not reaching completely new people. So
Well,
I think if you came on now, it would be even harder than it was when I started.
yeah, I'd have to show videos of cats and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
cats and babies, big winners. But I admit, I watch videos of cats and babies, and they're great, and I love them.
yeah, I don't watch too many of them.
Hmm.
I actually pretty much stick to political YouTube, and there's a few things with like diet and exercise that I watch.
Hmm.
And then other than that, it's how-tos. Like,
Yeah.
how do I fix my stupid washing machine? I mean, it's YouTube's great for that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Or
totally.
yeah. Or how do I fix my Jeep?
Well, there was some stuff. We just got a big Berkey, and I read the directions, and I'm like, there's just a couple of things I don't understand. I just have a few questions, and there's no one for me to ask. So I went and looked up some videos, and I said, okay. And it totally answered my questions just by having somebody do it and videotape it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like that. Oh, I did find a fun story that you might enjoy though.
Okay.
Let me try the screen share again. Let's see here.
Okay, just one sec. I'm getting hot, so I'm going to turn my fan on.
Oh,
One sec.
okay. There we go. Okay, it looks like screen share worked.
Oh, I'm here. I don't see myself anymore.
Right. You should.
Oh, but here when I go back over here, now I see what you were trying to share with me.
Yeah, this is a different one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right.
it was just one of those headlines that cracked me up. Let me blow this up so that people on YouTube can see this. But yeah, Muslim cleric killed after cow he was about to ritually slaughter fights back. And it just talks about how he was going to slaughter 4 cows and 17 goats. Yeah, 4 cattle and 17 goats as part of a ritual for the Islamic day of sacrifice at a mosque in Blaitar, wherever that is. And the cow got loose and basically rammed him full speed, and that was all she wrote. So
What's the ritual killing?
I have no idea. I know they do the whole halal meat, halal slaughtering and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people are against it. It's kind of like kosher slaughter, but the Islamic version, and it has to do with how they kill the animal, and it's not as
Oh,
fast as a bolt to the brain kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
But so the jokes were running with this cow that what I saw where people are talking. They were talking about how this jihadi cow is a radical Muslim. I mean, it just kind of struck me as funny. I just saw it
Yeah.
about an hour before we started, so.
Mhm.
But it's just interesting to see that there's still people that sacrifice animals to their god too. I mean, it still happens.
As long as the animal isn't like tortured or go through too much pain,
Right, right,
I don't see that it's that much. I mean, I eat meat, so what's the difference really? If they're torturing the animal, then no.
right, right. But I mean, it's just odd to me to. It's like, no, I'm just gonna kill the animal to eat it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So I no longer see my face on the stream. Just
it's
FYI.
because of the screen share messes with it.
Okay.
You should be back here as soon as the delay's over.
Oh, there we are.
Um,
Okay. I see it.
yeah, but it's. I think it's just interesting that they still do that over there. It's they
Hmm.
are still kind of stuck 1400 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, another thing, thinking of the left, you probably haven't heard too much about my governor. You've probably actually she has made national news for withdrawing National Guard troops from the border.
Oh, really?
Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Okay. I don't know anything about her.
Well, I have it on good authority that the Democrat that ran against her in the primary, he lost obviously, and then after he was done, he said, "Okay, I'm going to be a good sport," and went into her office and said, "What can I do to help you win?" And she blew up and started yelling and screaming and cussing at him for making him spend money. And then fast forward, she wins and she tries to push through all this gun control stuff and get some of it through like universal background checks.
Hmm.
Well, it's something like 22 or 25 of the 33 counties here all passed
Hmm.
resolutions saying, no, we're not going to enforce this.
Good.
30 out of the 33 sheriffs said, no, we're not going to enforce this. And so she did the same thing to a county commissioner, blew up when she said, I'm the governor and you have to do what I say and you have to respect me. And he said, no, you earn my respect. And she blew
Yeah.
up and started yelling and cussing at him. It's just like, oh man, she's
Well, also she has to follow the Constitution.
right. And sheriffs are well within their right to say, no, we're not going to enforce this law. Uh, Supreme Court's ruled on that.
Yeah.
So but I mean, it's just like she's a little dictator, and she would take all our guns if she could, but it's like in New Mexico, everybody, even the Democrats, are like, no, we like our guns. So,
Well, New Mexico's pretty rural.
right, right.
So yeah.
We're the fifth largest state, and we have 2 million people.
Yeah.
So,
And you do actually need guns more when you live in a rural area, both because there are actual wild animals out there, the
right,
coyotes, feral hogs, etc. And then also, if the police are half an hour away,
exactly.
you need to be able to defend yourself if somebody breaks in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Although I will tell you, our least populous county, don't break in down there because everybody has guns. Like
Yeah.
I should dig up the picture, but it would take me forever. I've got a picture. It's the county seat is a town called Reserve. It's got the
Hmm.
coolest bar ever. You walk in there, it's Uncle Bill's, and it has like a Confederate flag and an American flag hanging from the ceiling, and all of these old, like antique firearms hanging everywhere. And everybody's really friendly as long as you don't tell them what to do.
That's cool. Sounds like my kind of people.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place.
Uh-huh.
Oh, by the way, I am going to be down on the border at least twice this year.
Okay.
So, is there anything I should look out for when dealing with Customs and Border Patrol? Not that you.
Oh, you should be fine. There's nothing, there's no information I'm looking for, and I wouldn't expect you to have any issues. So.
Well, I'll have an AR-10 with me because I have a deer hunt and I'm going to get a cougar tag.
Hmm.
So in that context, if the deer, there's some BLM land that's right on the border. If that's where the deer are, that's where I'm going to be with a big,
Hmm.
not just a scary looking rifle, a big scary looking rifle.
As long as, I mean, all CBP is looking for is, well, okay, they're looking for, are you a U.S. citizen, but they're also looking for some sort of trafficking, which could include weapons trafficking.
Right.
I don't think you're going to have any issues. I think you'll be just fine.
Yes. So as long as if I have a hunting, so here's my deer tag, dude. You think that'll?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be fine. That'll be fine.
I was there. There is a port of entry down where I'll be called Antelope Wells, which nobody has ever heard of. Do you think it would be wise to stop in and just say, "Hey, I'm going to be down here," just so you know?
Uh, I I don't think you need to do that, and I think they might. I think they would be surprised. It doesn't sound like something that most people do, so I
Right.
think, yeah, I think the CBP would be like, okay. I don't think they'd be like, well, thank you for dropping in. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
do
I,
it.
I just not living directly on the border. I just have very little dealings with them, so I'm not sure how they react most of the time.
Yeah. No, they're fine. They're decent people. All of my interactions with CBP have been positive.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's always some bad apple somewhere, but
Yeah. I mean, it's like the police. Most of my interactions with the police have been positive, but there's been one or two times where
you're like, you shouldn't be on the
he's
force.
an asshole and he's the one with all the authority. So in those moments, I'm like, yeah, I can see how this would piss people off because he's wrong. I'm right. He's got the gun. He's got the authority to arrest me. And then that's very frustrating, but it doesn't happen very often.
Right. Right. Actually, one thing I noticed when you sent back an email saying I'll get on it at 10 till we're going to start the stream at 7:20 p.m. Eastern time. I looked at that and I was like, you're scheduling things like an attorney does. It was just interesting. It's like we're just going to set a time and do it.
Exactly. Well, whenever people ask me, when would be a good time to do this? My answer is often, it's never going to be a good time. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
I can't find a good time in my schedule. That's not going to happen. If we're waiting for a good time, it's never going to happen.
Right.
So the scheduling it at 7:20 was, okay, we need a couple of minutes to try this out.
to overcome our boomer tech issues.
Exactly. But 15 minutes seemed too long. So
Right. And it turned out that it kind of wasn't, but some of the problems weren't going to show up until afterwards, which was
right, we
interesting.
have to sort of go live before we know.
Right.
I'm wiping
Right.
some of my sweat off here. I noticed in some of the footage of Mayor Kinney in Philadelphia when they were talking about the police shootout.
Oh,
It's nighttime, but Mayor Kinney's being interviewed outside, and he's just pouring sweat because it's August in Philadelphia. It's hot out.
oh yeah.
He's just sweating.
And it doesn't cool down at night.
No,
It-
it's too hot, especially in the city.
Right. At least here in New Mexico, this has actually been a very mild year. I think we hit 100 degrees at my house once.
Mm-hmm.
Normally it's like, no, we hit it regularly, but
Yeah.
it cools down at night.
I haven't checked, but I think we're in some sort of drought in New Hampshire because it thunderstormed like every other day in the summer last year.
Huh.
This year, we've had some storms. It rained last night, but not nearly as much. My basement, I have a wet basement, and one of
Oh.
the issues with the house, it's dry right now, or at least it was dry before the thunderstorm yesterday. So
Yeah.
it was pretty dry, and then
Yeah,
now it's
No basements in my neighborhood. I can
Right.
hit the water table with a shovel, so.
oh well, that's actually good. That's good.
Well, if shit hit the fan, I would actually probably bug out from my area.
Okay.
I'm not
Why?
I'm not in the city, but there's enough of the city close by
Oh.
that. But see, I have an unfortunate four-wheeling habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if it hit the fan bad enough that everybody was trying to get out of town, I'm like, I know all the trails that aren't on the
Right.
maps. I know how to get out of here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But
See, around here, if shit hits the fan in the winter, I mean, there's going to be snow. You really can't go on a lot of these back trails or these
right.
dirt roads because they'll just be covered in snow. So it depends.
Well, I can tell you two different vehicles that four-wheel extremely well that you can get for fairly cheap.
Mm-hmm.
The Jeep Cherokee and
Okay.
the first and second generation Jeep Grand Cherokees with the 6 cylinder.
See, my son is in the market for a car. As soon as he gets his license, he's going to be getting a used car. And I'm concerned about getting him anything with a high center of gravity, because I've seen cars roll, and I would rather his car didn't roll. So what would you recommend?
Um, well, I mean, they're actually pretty good on the center of gravity until you start lifting them. I've got a Cherokee with a 3-inch lift, and I've slid down stuff that I could have sworn I was going to roll, and it didn't. I
Okay.
mean, it was real, like real four wheeling, the kind of stuff that everybody's like, I'll get out and walk
Right.
when I'm going up stuff. You put a 6-inch lift, yeah, it'll make it a lot easier to roll, but you don't need to. Stock, they will go places that you would not believe. And I've taken them through 2 feet of snow up in the mountains in the winter. So,
Okay. So maybe a Jeep Cherokee or something like that.
yeah, or the first and second generation Grand Cherokee, but you've got to watch out for some axle stuff, and I can help you out with that if you're looking at that. But
Okay.
part of the reason is they can be found for cheap, and their suspension is one that really lets them put the tires on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was suggesting that he get a Honda Fit, which is what I have, and it's been super reliable. It's been just a great car. And he says, "Well, I don't want a mom car."
Yeah, my neighbor has a Honda Fit, or
Hmm.
no, she had one. She got rid of it, but she had a vanity license plate that was hissy,
Hmm.
so it was a hissy Fit. I thought it was funny, but
I get it.
I like that particular neighbor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed my Honda Fit. It's been super, super reliable. And I was afraid that it would just get knocked around in the winters around here, but it was fine on the roads. It was completely fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's people watching, but nobody's chatting. I wonder.
Yeah. Is there an issue with the chat? Somebody type something just to say hi. Just type hi.
Huh. Yeah, type hi so I can have my first non-Laurel chat. But I am gonna like I've already been doing it. I am gonna start promoting other people's videos at the
Hmm.
beginning of every one. I did one with Oliver Perrin at Semiagog, and he's like, "That's why I got a few subscribers all of a sudden."
Ah. So we've got Richard Chalcott. Hello
Ah,
from South Carolina. So it is working. Thanks, Richard.
yes, Richard Talcott. I think he used to live in New Mexico, if I recall correctly. Which is that? Didn't weren't you formerly in New Mexico, Richard? I think he used to work for. I think he used to do some sort of government contracting or something, and he thinks the government is really stupid, which I agree with him.
Oh, it says yes. He worked at Albuquerque for 13 years. Was that ABQ? What is that? What ABQ is?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Lived in
Um,
Albuquerque.
yeah, I mean, doing immigration law, I deal with the government all the time, and sometimes they're great, and sometimes individual government officials, they can be brilliant,
Right,
and sometimes things work really well. There's also a lot of incompetence. There's a lot of laziness. There's a lot of passing the buck. And a lot of government officials who don't know what they're doing and don't care. So I certainly encounter that plenty. And
right.
whenever people want to give, especially when I see immigration lawyers wanting to give more government, more power to the government, I'm puzzled. I'm like, have you been working with a different federal government than I have? You want to give them more power over your life? Whenever people want the government to step in and take care of children or
Oh,
take care of marginalized communities and everything like that, I'm like, do, you need to understand the government is a machine. There are real people working in the government, but the government itself is a
right,
machine.
right.
The machine does not care about you. The machine cannot care about you. The machine is not out to get you. There may be individual government officials out to get you, but the machine is not out to get you. However, because the machine doesn't care about you, it will run right over you
Oh,
and not care.
oh, absolutely.
So do not give the machine more power than you have to.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I'm, my thoughts are like I see the anarcho-capitalists, which in your chat, if you see people say ANCAP, that's what they're talking about. I'm like, that's my utopia is ANCAP, but I know
Yeah.
it's not going to work. I know it.
Well, yeah, I used to be on a libertarian radio show
Hmm.
and met a lot of hardcore libertarians there. And I do still consider myself a libertarian, but I'm not a libertarian purist, if you will,
Right.
because they want absolutely no government at all. And my response to that is actually not possible
Yeah.
because
It creates it.
if there's no government, people start there's spontaneous order. People start forming
Right.
groups, they start forming organizations, and that's fine.
Then
They will also form groups to protect themselves, and the government becomes
right.
whoever has the most physical power. And there will always be someone, if not a group, then an individual. Someone is going to have the most power, and that is the government. It will always happen.
Basically, you get warlords.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can just look at Somalia for that. It was like it's a libertarian's dream. It's like, no, no, no. I only want to get rid of 90% of the government, not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm. I
know?
still want somebody that we all agree on, that we all vote on, even though
Right.
that's imperfect. I want that group to have the most power because someone has to. So at the very least, it should be somebody that we all agree on
Right.
as best as we can.
I mean, stick to the Bill of Rights and
Mhm.
pass an
Watch the
amendment.
government carefully.
Pass an amendment saying that the 14th Amendment doesn't give you birthright citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say actually put a sunset clause on all legislation.
Oh, wow. Except the Bill of Rights, but everything
Right.
else, sunset clause.
Because I mean, it's otherwise it just keeps building up and building up and building
Yeah.
up, and I don't. I have no idea how many pages there are in the United States Code. A
Oh,
lot.
God. I have no idea.
Nobody can
Yeah.
follow all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many pages there are now, but I know in 2016 the Code of Federal Regulations was about 180,000 pages.
Sounds about right.
And it's
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
people are like free market, free market. I'm like that ain't no free market. 180,000 pages. That's
Yeah,
not
and
a free
my
market.
my my late father described how things get like that. He says every law by itself, when you look at it, it makes sense by itself,
Right.
but in regulations. But then you start adding them all together and it becomes overwhelming. And if you're trying to run a business, he says it gets to the point where a regular business person in a small business running it by themselves cannot know all of these rules and regulations. Like they can't
Right.
comply with everything on their
Absolutely.
own.
It's
Um,
it's geared
yeah,
towards the big players, and I think the big players know that. I mean, I
yeah,
really do.
yeah. So whenever like a politician comes along and says we're gonna crack down on businesses and make the businesses do X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, that is going to favor the big businesses. You're acting like those are the people that you're coming down on, but what's going to happen is you're going to pass these new laws that everybody's going to have to follow. Even if you say you have exceptions for small businesses, they're still going to have to check and make sure that they qualify for this exception, blah, blah, blah. And also, when you make it so that the larger employers have to provide all these benefits and the smaller employers don't,
Right.
then it's harder to get employees because they say, well, I'm going to go work for the big guys because then I can get all these benefits. I can be sure that I'm going to have them. And then the small businesses have a hard time competing with that.
Right. And it's regulating everything as though it needs the same kind of regulation. It's like, no, the big mega dairy that produces, thousands of gallons of milk per day that sells to Albertsons or Kroger or whatever grocery stores in your area is very different from the local farmer who
Right.
produces enough raw milk that you can meet a local niche. And
Right.
so raw milk is $12 a gallon in my area.
Where I live, it's $5 a gallon.
Oh, see, that's nice.
Yeah, it's not too far. So we have to drive about 20 minutes. It makes a good driving lesson for Isaac, although that's how he almost killed me as we were on the way to get home. Yeah, it's 20, 25 minutes, and it's $3 for a half gallon and $5 for a whole gallon. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds pretty. I mean, the stuff here is pretty good, but at $12 a gallon, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a half gallon every once in a while, and it'll be a treat.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Have you heard of a guy named Joseph Tainter?
No,
Tainter.
no.
He's an anthropologist. In fact, he used to be at the University of New Mexico, which at least was one of the top anthropology departments in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But his specialty is the collapse of complex societies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like an hour and a half long lecture up on YouTube, or you can buy his book for like $70.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about it, and he says, no, what happens is societies build up complexity, and he has a very specific definition of complexity. He said they keep on adding complexity, and complexity comes with the cost. And they keep on adding it to solve problems, keep on adding it to solve problems, and eventually you get to the point where the costs to the complexity start exceeding the new benefit that you get, and then it just starts to go downhill from there.
Right.
But his point was, the cost could be money, the cost could be energy, the cost could be annoyance. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, and I'm sitting there like going through his stuff, and I'm like, that sounds kind of familiar.
Right. Right.
Right?
Also, the more the government does for us, the more power we hand over to the government. Not only is there the potential for abuse or incompetence,
Oh, yeah.
there's also, let's say things run well, then we don't know how to do that without the government.
Right.
So once the government breaks down, because I'm thinking about all the stuff, we live in this super complex society, so many skills have been lost
Right.
because there's not much benefit in doing things on your own when you can get other things so much cheaper, and it makes us all dependent on the government and on this complex society. So when the collapse happens, and as I've made clear, I believe it's going to in the next few years, it's just a matter of how many years. The reason we're screwed is because we don't know how to live without these systems. We don't know how to live without the public water works. We don't know how to live without the local hospital. People
Yeah.
lived without them for thousands of years, but they had those skills that were passed down from generation to generation, and we've lost those. So we're like babies,
Yeah.
toddlers maybe, in trying to do things on our own.
Well, and that gets into another thing. Most people don't pay attention to this, but so leading up to 2014, and this gets back into collapse.
Mm-hmm.
The entire shale oil industry. This was when oil was bouncing between $80 and $110 a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
It sold $550 billion in junk bonds to finance its operations. And then oil, the price took a nosedive, and a whole bunch of them had to go file for bankruptcy. And now they came back and they're doing the exact same thing again, selling high yield credits, so junk bonds to finance. You can find a few companies in the industry that have been profitable, but industry wide, it has never been profitable. And we're betting our national and economic security on it.
How are we betting our national economic security on it?
Because we're doing drill baby drill, and we're using it as an oil. We're using a non-profitable sector that really can't be profitable until oil gets to like $150 a barrel
Uh-huh.
for our energy security. It's like this isn't going to work out. And the other thing, I just went and looked it up the other day. I probably should do a video on this. If we stopped drilling and fracking today, we'd lose about 5% of our oil production per month.
Hmm.
That's how fast those wells deplete. So like in 2 months, we'd be down to, close to 10%, and it's an exponential decline. But it would only take a few months, and our oil production would be 50% of what it was if we stopped drilling and fracking.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So, because I think we're producing around 12 million barrels a day, and every month we have to bring on 567,000 new barrels per day of production every single month just to stay flat. And it's like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Well, this is what my little sister used to do. Is
Yeah.
she worked for a company where they looked for oil at the bottom of the ocean.
oh
That's
deep
what she
sea.
did for a living.
I think. Well, and there's another issue with the oil from the fracking is it doesn't have a lot of heavy components, so you don't get a lot of grease, which you need for a lot of heavy equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember when all those rail cars used to be blowing up. I think they were Warren Buffett's or something. It's because there was a lot of light volatile stuff in there that just went boom all
Yeah.
the time. So I mean, we're just doing something incredibly stupid in terms of betting our future on this stuff.
Hmm.
And I figure that part of our economy is going to go blow up sometime between 2021 and 2025.
So pretty soon.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the time frame. It's
Right.
it's like this country's headed for a perfect storm in the 2020s,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I'm no longer apprehensive about or scared of.
Well, I'm getting ready. If it happened tomorrow, I'm screwed. We don't have enough food.
I don't
Yeah.
think you'll
There's just go ahead.
I don't think you'll ever be ready.
Well, I can be more ready than I am now.
Right, right,
There's a number of things where I'm like, if it happens tomorrow, we don't have this done, we don't have this done, we don't have this done. If I could have a couple of years, we're already much more ready now than we were a year
right.
ago, just
And
because I came to terms with the fact that this is going to happen and we are so not ready. And I went to a prepper camp out of interest because I thought those people seem cool.
right,
It sounds like fun. I'm going to go. And slowly I'm thinking, well, okay, it was at that first camp that I learned about the Metcalf attacks. And it was that session because they have different sessions at prepper camp. It's like all these tents and you go to classes and sessions, and it was just a lot of fun and interesting. But it was really the one where they started talking about grid down. And
right.
I forget what the title of that session was or what we were supposed to be talking about, but they started going over not only EMPs, but the Metcalf attack. And it hit me. I'm like, that's what the plan is. That's what the unspoken plan is people are going to take down the grid. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I knew from that moment, that's what I'm preparing for is people are going to shoot up the transformers and take down the grid. And that's basically what I've been getting ready for. And whenever somebody says the Civil Wars, it's not going to be like people meeting each other in the fields,
No,
and it's
no.
going to be fourth generation warfare, and
It'll
the
it'll
people in the city, they're more ready for war than we are. And I'm like, no, because they're going to take down the grid.
it yeah no it'll be attacking infrastructure and a lot of guerrilla tactics.
Yeah, and the cities are more vulnerable to that than the
Right.
rural areas.
And
Just
that was the thing several years ago when I you know said, gee, we might actually get a civil war sometime in the future, and I started thinking, okay, so how would I deal with this? My thought was, oh, start blowing power lines.
yeah,
And I've seen that over and over and over, which should scare the hell out of people on the left. It's like, no, the right is coming to a consensus on not whether or not we're going to have one, but if we do, how to prosecute it.
right. Well, I got an email. This may be what my video is on tomorrow. I got
Right.
an email from somebody saying, we need to be doing a preemptive attack because it's gone this far. It's going to happen. We need to be preemptive. And I'm like, whoa, dude.
Nope.
Okay. The FBI may be looking at my emails and everything. So I replied to him and I said, you can't plan it. Whatever's going to happen, it cannot be planned because the
Nope.
FBI will be all over you.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
no,
think,
no. No,
yeah.
if,
So I think my video tomorrow will be basically saying to people who are getting to the point where they're ready to do stuff
don't.
is don't.
Don't.
You're just gonna
No.
end up in jail. What
No,
you should be doing is using your energy and your money and your emotions to prep, go to church, meet other people, like-minded people, so that you have those networks in place later.
Right.
Because it's going to happen, and you sort of want to be ready to defend yourself when it occurs, but don't worry, it's going to happen. It's
Right.
like, you don't have to make it happen. In fact, you'll just get arrested. So don't.
Yeah, no, you'll get arrested and really make everybody else think, well, maybe those people he killed aren't so bad, even if they were. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe they really aren't that bad. So, yeah, don't do it.
I mean, the people the left, they're not bad people. And I know so many of them, and I know they're good
Right.
people, but they're
They're
getting ready to do bad things.
they're useful idiots, most of them.
Yeah.
There are a few bad people.
Yeah, some of them are bad.
Yeah, like Yvette Falarca and Luis Marquez and some of those guys. They're terrible people. But yeah, most of them are just useful idiots who don't know shit from Shinola.
Right. But it's because they're joining the chorus that it's going to be
Right.
possible.
Right.
They're still not bad people.
Right. in fact, and no, I'm not advocating for this. In fact, most of them, all that it would require to change their mind is just a good punch to the mouth. And I'm serious. I mean, they don't understand violence.
Ah,
They,
I hear
they
what you're saying. That, yeah. Well, I've tried to communicate. So what I hear you saying is the reality of what's going to happen needs to be made clear to them. That we are heading towards this violent end, and that should make them reconsider what they're
right.
doing.
And if you
It's gonna
think
suck.
mean words hurt, that fist in your lip hurts a lot more.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, they don't understand that.
Right. I've tried to explain that. I tried to explain it to some lefties, and it backfires. They think I'm it's some sort of threat. And when I say, look, we're going to end up with this war, people are going to die, and the grid's going to go down, and all this other stuff, and they're like, yeah, those people on the right are crazy, and they need to be stopped. I'm like, no, that's not the message that I'm trying to communicate.
Right.
I'm trying to communicate that you're the crazy one, and you need to stop.
Yeah, no,
Um,
they don't understand it, but they're willing to use it. That's the problem. It's like, no, you don't understand. This can be a two-way street, and the mean words are nothing compared to the mean fists.
right. Right. But what sometimes I feel frustrated and lost and overwhelmed with, well, I can't stop it. I really
Right.
can't. So what do I do? And the best thing to do is the things that I said: prepare, go to church, meet other people, learn how to use firearms, learn some of the skills that you're going to need. You're not going to be able to learn all the skills, but start learning some of them.
Well,
So
and
that's what we're
yeah, and logic does not work with these people. You
Unfortunately, it doesn't, and it's been really surprising because, of course, I came from the immigration
right,
attorney community, so these are all attorneys. They should be very logical,
right.
and they're just not. And I tried to. Well, some of them are. There's a few people who are like, "Yeah, this is dumb,"
Yeah, you need to
but
hit them in
most
the
of them are
feels.
not.
You need to hit them right in the feels.
Yeah,
In fact, one of the things that I've noticed that they tend to fear the most is being ostracized.
yeah, and I think it's not just them. I think that's a normal human
Right,
reaction. Is we all need to be part of a social group, and that was one of the things that made it very difficult for me to leave the left.
right.
Was I'm like, they're all of my friends. That's
Oh no.
everyone except a couple of my relatives.
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, if I leave them, then first of all, I'll sort of be alone over here in Brightland, but also
Right.
they could come after me, and that's going to be, it's eventually going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but they will come after me, and that's going to be really painful when people that I have been friends with start saying really nasty things. And yeah, it's only words, they're not hitting me or anything, but we're social people, and it's still going to hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, with them, it's like this pathological. It's so bad that I once got a girl who was like virulently anti-gun, like she thought everybody who owned a gun was evil. I
I
got
used to think that.
Yeah,
Go
but
on.
I got her to the point emotionally to where her grammar went to shit. She was just doing like crazy things. It's like, no, I just made you have an amygdala hijack or something, right?
Mhm.
Because I outgrouped her from the NRA. I'm like, you're not part of this big 5 million strong group, and I am. She went
Mm.
ballistic. And I was like, so the guy that was telling me that this whole outgrouping them thing makes him go ballistic, he wasn't joking. I'll remember this. Because
Yeah. Another thing I'd like to encourage people to do, but I don't know how to go about it myself, is recruit. So yeah, I
oh,
have this YouTube page, but how do you recruit on an individual level?
right,
And I sort of wonder, well, how was I recruited? And I wasn't. I sort of came around. Well, I've known for a long time that a lot of the ideology I was looking at on the left was bad, but also that there was a lot of good stuff and that people were doing a lot of good works. And so I stayed with it. But eventually it started to be more of the bad than the good. And I guess you can say also over on the right, there's bad and there's good. And you sort of have to tolerate the things you don't like because there's no utopia. The grass is always
right.
greener on the other side. You're never going to find a group of people that are just perfect and there's nothing you don't like. So it's a matter of how much crap are you willing to put up with. And it got to the point over on the left where I was wondering if the crap was too much, if it had gotten to the point where it was too much. And that crap was always there since I was in college, but it just started getting stronger and stronger. And after Trump won the election, I said, something is happening in the country and I clearly
Right.
don't know what it is, because I had been in my bubble over on the left.
Right.
Like
Well,
it blindsided me.
and that's the thing with the left is they think Trump is evil. It's like, no, Trump is a sign that
Right.
not everything is Skittles shitting unicorns like you thought it was.
Right, right. So a lot of people over on the left are like, how did he steal the election? How did he get there without people? So like, that's the whole thing with Russia. They're like,
Right.
well, obviously nobody supports him, or it's this tiny group. So he must have cheated. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of people. There's got to be people voting for it.
It's like, no, he wasn't Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, so what's going on? What is going on? And I went to see Milo Yiannopoulos because I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and Trump won the election, of course, the first Tuesday in November. And I spent a couple of weeks going, what is happening? And I was watching YouTube videos, and I was just looking like, and I went to my son, I said, recommend some YouTube videos so I can find out. And he's like giving me a bunch of Sargon of Akkad. And of course, I'd heard of Milo, and I saw that he was speaking at the University of West Virginia in November.
Oh.
So I said, okay, I'm going to go see him. And you could get a free ticket online. So I got myself a free ticket, and I drove. Dude, it was far. I was motivated because I wanted. And some people were like, you went to West Virginia to see Milo? Like they couldn't believe it, because it was like 6 hours. So I drove 6 hours and I stayed in a hotel. And I showed up to the University of West Virginia, and I had my ticket, but it was the students of the university still got priority.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the professors at the university wanted to make sure that none of Milo's supporters actually got in.
Oh.
So he told all of his students who were not Milo supporters, go and fill the seats, and then no one else can get in because the students had priority. So they filled the auditorium, and we were stuck outside. And some people gave up and went home, but most of us stayed. We said, let's stay around. And some people who were more familiar with Milo said, even if it's full, he'll greet everybody afterwards.
Right.
So we stuck around. Antifa showed up. The police did a really good job of keeping us separate. I got a little freaked out when Antifa showed up, because they were all covering their faces and stuff.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
So before Trump got elected, he came to Albuquerque.
Uh-huh.
And I'd looked at what had happened at like San Bernardino and things like that, and I'm like, Albuquerque has similar demographics. It's going to.
So are you talking about before Trump got elected? He came. Are you saying Trump
on the campaign trail? Trump on the campaign trail.
Oh, okay.
And that turned into the biggest clusterfuck you ever saw. I was like, I'm going to go watch the protest. Forget about Trump. And
yeah.
And I know some cops that were there that patrolled it. I know the horse-mounted unit for APD. And afterwards, they were like, no, they bust Antifa in. Like, they were bussed in from out of state. And it turned into a near riot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was people throwing things. It was the most hateful crowd I've ever been around.
Yeah.
And
Antifa, they were nasty. They were calling us fascists. And I'm like, you don't even know who we are. I came to see what's going on. And they're calling me a fascist. And Antifa didn't throw any punches. As I said, the police did a really good job of separating us. Like, we were within feet from each other, and the police were like made a line in the middle. The police actually looked scared.
Yeah.
Because there's a crowd, this could easily get out of control.
Yeah, no, the police were scared here because there was Antifa, and then one block over, it was all the gangbangers protesting. Like, some of the uncleared murders in Albuquerque were probably in that crowd.
Wow.
And I did watch violence from those guys. Like, they punched a guy out that was like 10 feet from me just because he looked like he might be a Trump supporter. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And the cops only had the manpower to break up the fight.
Right.
They didn't have... And there was jumping up and down on cop cars. That did probably $5,000 worth of damage that taxpayers had to pay for. And they finally got the mounted patrol out there in their riot gear to push the crowd and get them to disperse, which is good because it would have turned into cars being burned, windows broken everywhere. And it's like, So they'll do the violence, but my impression of watching how good they are is they suck.
Antifa? Yeah.
Yeah, they suck. They'll
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you get somebody who actually fights back, you guys are going to be sorry.
Right. Right. They're emboldened by the fact that, well, in places like Portland, where the
that
mayor won't
yeah,
arrest
that,
them.
that 10 of them can jump on Andy No.
Right.
It's like, mm,
So back to West Virginia. I had been there like during all of Milo's speech before Antifa showed up, because they showed up after like half an hour or so. I I was just talking to all of the other people who were there waiting to see Milo after he's done talking, and they just seemed like really nice people. And they
yeah,
seemed like they wanted to save the country. They were young. They were some of them were from high schools nearby, so some of them were minors. Some of them were uh, college students from other colleges nearby. And then there were some older people, but mostly it was younger people. And they just seemed like really decent people, and they weren't being violent. And when Antifa showed up, we listened to the police. We did what the police told us to do. And we weren't violent with Antifa. And Antifa pulled the fire alarm too.
oh, we've got Gulf City Scott Marsh in the chat. Hello.
Hi.
I'm guessing Scott Marsh? Not a very lively one, but YouTube doesn't like me, so.
Yeah. No, it's been good though. Yeah, and then at the end, Milo let us in, and he took pictures. So there's a picture of me with Milo, and yeah, I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun, and I went back home thinking I need to learn more about this side, because what they've been presented to me to be is not what I'm seeing.
So, yeah, I think of Donald Trump as King Troll. I mean, when he's tweeting stuff out, it's like he's doing this to get a reaction.
Yeah, and it
And he-
works.
yeah.
He's doing a good job.
And I look at,
Well, for that with the tweets.
and Milo's like a duke or a baron in the whole trollhood thing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Milo, he's a great performer, and if
yes.
you ever get a chance to go see him speak, you should go see him speak, because he puts on a fun performance. And I still think he has a role to serve in that regard. I don't like some of the disputes he's had with other people on the right. I think that's completely unnecessary. I think it's very childish on his part quite frequently.
Who was it that he trash talked?
Everybody,
Was it
my
Blonde?
God. I don't know whether he trash talked Blonde, but certainly Ben Shapiro. And then Jordan Peterson, he just went after Jordan Peterson until Jordan Peterson invited him to come speak. And then, oh, now they're great friends because Milo gets to be the center of attention. So
Right.
I still
Yeah,
like Milo, but he's got some shortcomings.
he is a bit of a narcissist.
Yeah. Oh, and he came after Dave Rubin. And
Dave
Dave was
Rubin?
like, what? Yeah, okay, well, Milo had been on Dave Rubin's show, I think more than once, and Dave was a fan. And then when Milo was getting all of that hate for supposed pedophilia,
Yeah.
he didn't feel like Dave Rubin stood up for him enough. And
Huh.
then so he started trash talking Dave Rubin, and Dave was like, what?
I think the only person more mild mannered than Dave Rubin is Tim Pool.
Yeah, Temple is such a sweetie. He's so adorable.
Well, a lot of people trash talk him for being a milquetoast fence sitter or whatever. But it's like, you know what?
He needs to just admit that he's on the right.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is he makes an effort to be honest, and that's so rare these days that I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And no, I disagree with a lot of what it's like you want all these government programs, Tim. It's like, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah, and he said he was a Bernie bro. I think he's come off of Bernie, but for a while he was a Bernie bro. Even before I left the left, I was telling people Bernie Sanders is going to destroy the country. If he's elected president, he will destroy the country. Why can't you see that?
Well, if that, or if you want to accelerate things, just vote for Kamala Harris.
Yes, yeah.
It's like if
She would do, well, she said after 100 days, she would pass an executive order to take the guns. And I think she would do it, even knowing that it would be shot down by the Supreme Court very quickly. I think she would know that. And she would do it anyway as a political maneuver to say, look, I tried and they beat me down, and we need to make the Supreme Court more liberal.
I've crunched the numbers, and it's like you'd easily get 1% of the population saying, "Screw you, come get them," lead first.
Well, I'm working on my script. I'm still working on it for the collapse, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be like a multi-part series where I'm like, this is how the collapse happens. Here's day one. Here's day two, and so as I'm working on it, I'm really thinking through much more carefully what happens when, especially in the first couple of days. And also, what would cause it? What might be the triggering event? So in the scenario that I present, it's exactly that. It's a president, a Democratic president, such as
Right.
Kamala Harris, who passes that piece of, passes that executive order. And that's the triggering event for people to go take down the grid. Even though she knows that it's going to get shot down and she's doing it as a political show, it's not really going to work. It would still be the triggering event because people are starting to look for that trigger.
Well,
I think there's people who are just waiting for it, waiting for that signal.
oh, I know there are.
Yeah.
Some less apprehensively than others.
And that would be it. An executive order like that.
Oh yeah, that could do it. The other thing that I think is likely is a sovereign debt crisis. I mean, that's the U.S. That's all of a sudden the U.S. can't afford to import anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's the economy is going down, and you've invited all of these people who are culturally different, and you expect me to pay for them too. And that's the thing that gets me with the left. It's like, no, if things break apart, if the welfare state comes apart, what you have just done to these people is extremely cruel.
Yeah. Then they're isolated. They can't. Yeah, because they're not ready to function in American society. They're not ready to contribute because they don't speak the language. They're too culturally different. As a group, they can't take care of themselves here. So if the collapse happens, they're screwed, and they're going to be attacked. And I don't encourage that. That is what will happen.
Yeah, and it's like, no, I don't hate you because you're Mexican or because you have brown skin, but I don't have the resources to make sure you can survive. I mean, I don't know how else to put it other than that. In fact, that actually reminds me. Do you ever get? Let's see here. I haven't checked this for a while. Do you ever get onto? It's called the FRED system for the St. Louis Federal Reserve.
No.
Oh, it is a gold mine of all sorts of different data. And so, we always hear about unemployment is good. Well, it's like, yeah, unemployment's kind of a scam. Let me do this. Let me swap over. If you can, well, you can. Are you watching the YouTube channel?
Yeah, but I can go over to.
Oh no, you can see it right here. This is just the labor force participation rate.
Okay.
And you can see in starting in about the mid to late 60s, it starts going up. This is just the percentage of the population that's considered part of the labor force. And then after the dot-com bust, it goes down a little bit and came back up a little bit. And then we had 2008 with Lehman Brothers, and then it dropped, and it's kind of hovered there a little bit. So when they say unemployment's going down, what it is people are no longer being counted as part of the labor force. When it was going up in the 70s and 80s and all the way up to 2000, that was women entering the workforce.
Right.
And so we're in the longest expansion in U.S. history in terms of GDP growth right now, which means that the next, whatever catastrophe goes on, I don't know, Deutsche Bank blows up and it catches on over here or whatever, it's going to be even bigger than what happened in 2008. Yeah, and it's going to drop that even further.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it. There's so many potential triggers. Guns is one of them. The economy is one of them. The trigger could be abortion. Like if the Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade, that's not something that the right's going to react to negatively, but the left would react so strongly that the right might say, okay, it's on. Because I think the left would go out and riot.
Oh, I think they absolutely would, even though it would go back to the states. And it's like, okay, well, for people in my state, it's like, yeah, okay, they're never going to outlaw abortion. I don't care how Catholic you say they are. It's not going to happen.
Right, right.
Yeah, West Virginia, on the other hand, it could happen.
Georgia, yeah.
Yeah.
But California, they'll be fine. They can keep killing their babies all they want.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
It goes back to the states. It's like that. I don't know if you remember. It was probably about a year ago. There was that female genital mutilation case that was in the federal court system, and the
Uh-huh.
judge threw it out. I don't. Some girl. They did the whole female genital mutilation because
Uh-huh.
Islam,
Right.
and the people who did it got arrested and charged under this federal statute saying, no, you can't do that. And the federal judge threw it out saying, no, this is not a federal issue.
Mm.
And I was like,
It's a state's issue, right?
yeah, I actually agree with him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
at least in my state, I could make the case that was aggravated battery. I mean, there was some great bodily harm that happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one
Child
of
abuse. But that's again, yeah, you're right. It's at the state level.
yeah, and that's one of my odd hobbies that I do. I haven't done it in a while, but you would actually appreciate as an attorney. Is sometimes I'm like, what's the case law on this? So
Yeah, sometimes I'll go and look, but since it's what I do all day,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't always go and do that in my spare time. It's like people ask me if I read all these books, and I'm like, no, dude. Like I read all day. I read and write all day for work. I don't want to do it in my off time.
right. If I'm going to pick up a book to read, it's going to be some science fiction or some fantasy or something.
Uh-huh. I'll just watch YouTube videos.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, that's another thing with YouTube is it's getting to the point where you can find all the old documentaries back when they weren't like Ice Road Truckers or whatever. It's like, oh no, they're talking about real history.
Hmm.
The kind of stuff that I would watch if it were on TV, but it's not, so I don't watch TV anymore.
That's why I like Townsend's.
Hmm.
Are you the one who said you watched that one?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that one's cool. I've only seen a few episodes, but what I've seen is like, oh my god, that's really, it's awesome. It's just the history, plain and
Yeah.
simple. And it's not. He says he doesn't want his channel to be politicized, and I totally respect that. But at the
Right.
same time, it's impossible to escape,
Yeah.
because so much of the history that we learn in school is politicized from the left point of view, and his has escaped that, and it's not tainted by all this leftist ideology.
Right.
He's actually talking about how hard it was for white people, and he's not specifying that, but that's the population that
Right.
is subject of his stuff. How hard it was for them to do things like wash their clothes.
Oh yeah.
And he's
Laundry
just
was
describing these incredible hardships, and I'm like, I wish everybody could watch this. 'Cause
yeah.
it
Laundry
brings
was a terrible chore.
yeah, and it brings this all. You just realize what all of our ancestors went through to start this country and get this going, and it gives you a renewed appreciation.
Yeah.
So
No.
Gulf City Scott Marsh says he watches Townsend's as well, and now he knows how to make quill pens. Oh, he learned how to make quill pens in school, not from Townsend's.
And I actually watched it for pemmican.
Uh huh.
If you haven't heard of pemmican and you want to do prepping, or
I
if you
saw
just
that episode.
yeah, or if you just want and it really helps to go on the keto diet if you're going to
Hmm.
do pemmican for like backpacking,
Yeah.
because most people's bodies aren't set up to burn fat right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's just you take whatever meat. I used elk when I made some, and you get it super, super, super dry, and then you grind it up into as much of a powder as you can, and then you take rendered beef fat, like the fat that comes around the organs, also called suet.
Hmm.
You render that, and then you mix it with the super dry elk, and you can add things to flavor it, like strawberries, super dry strawberry. The key is everything has to be super dry. I think blueberries was a common one. And it'll keep for months to years at room temperature.
Yeah.
And
And
if
that
you make
gets
it,
really valuable
Yeah.
when things are.
and if you've made it right, if you're kind of hungry and you take one bite, it'll taste pretty good, but you won't be able to get through 4 ounces. It's just too rich.
Hmm.
But 4 ounces is like 800 calories and 50 grams of protein. So
Yeah. Yeah. But it sounds like really good for backpacking and stuff.
yeah, and my niece watches Townsend's too. Like she discovered them independently.
Hmm.
was like,
Yeah, that's what was so funny. When I got a text from my sister Gloria, and Gloria says, "Are you the Laurel in Beauty and the Beta?" She's like, "Is that you?" And I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah." So she was a fan of Matt Christensen separately from me. Just she started watching him apparently before I did, and I had no idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's right. Lauren Chen's going to be on instead of Blonde tonight.
Hmm.
So, roaming
Yeah, and
millennial.
Blonde, there was all that mystery surrounding where she was in Europe, and I'm like, oh, maybe she went to France and everything. And then Brittany Pettibone posted the picture of her wedding, and I'm like, that's where Blonde is.
Oh,
Brittany Pettibone's wedding. She's in Austria.
Austria. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes
and she was
perfect
keeping
sense.
quiet because they didn't want to reveal the wedding dates. So she didn't want to reveal that she was there for the wedding because then everybody would know. They would go and disrupt the wedding.
Yeah, yeah, they would. But yeah, that's the other thing with the tallow made from the beef fat.
Mm-hmm.
I got enough to make extra tallow because on Townsend's he's used it for other cooking stuff, and I was like, that's interesting. And so I let it harden and threw it in the freezer, and now I've started cooking with it. It's like, oh my god, this is good. I'm never, I'm never going back to using like other kinds of oils for frying this stuff up.
Huh, huh.
So
All right, we'll have to try some of those recipes.
yeah, look up some of his stuff on rendering suet. Um,
Okay. I know my son will be interested. I hope my son gets that job, that gets that
yeah,
apprenticeship.
right.
It doesn't start until May. So it must be really competitive if they want the applications now. So I hope he gets it. But as I said, it's competitive. That was hilarious that he put. Did you see his video?
No, I didn't.
I didn't get to see it either
Yeah,
before, like, really like 100 people saw it.
right.
He's embarrassed.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
just him like doing a job interview.
oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why he was embarrassed that it went out,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but that's, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I told you, but and I'm not going to do it forever and ever, but I went on the keto diet recently too.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is it's like, yeah, I'm eating 70% of my calories from fat, and I'm losing like 2 to 3 pounds of fat per week.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, we need to go back on it. Just that it's so easy to fall off the wagon and start having carbs again because it's
Right,
everywhere around. And if you don't feel like cook, really, in order to do keto, especially if you're in a rural area, but even in the city, it was hard.
right.
Eventually, you don't feel like cooking. You're like, I don't feel like cooking today. I'm tired. Let's just go get something. And if you go get something, it's really hard not to get
Right.
carbs because they're everywhere.
Well, and I'm more relaxed on that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so this has got carbs in it. I'm just going to go do a 20-minute walk afterwards to burn them off.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also been doing like sprints 3 times a week too, so that helps.
I'm
That's
up to 2.3 miles when I go running, and I didn't do all my runs this week, but I
yeah.
usually do 3 runs a week, so I'm up to 2.3 miles
You
per run. So.
you won't get me to run 2 or 3 miles unless I'm being chased by something. Like I love going out. I'll sprint for 100 yards and I'll walk for a minute, and then I'll sprint for 100 yards, then I'll walk for. I do that 6 or 8 times, and it's like you feel like you're going to die by the time you're done.
Uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
steady state car, I just hate it unless I'm being chased or chasing something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, I
like
actually really like using the treadmill more than running outside because the treadmill helps me keep pace.
hmm.
If I'm running outside, I run, and also it goes uphill, it goes downhill. So I just find that for me, the treadmill is better.
No, I've got a nature trail nearby that I go out, and it
Mhm.
makes me keep up my coordination going on all the twists and turns and making
Yeah.
sure. The other thing with sprinting in a straight line is you're actually a lot more likely to do like a hamstring pull or something. So
Huh.
that
Interesting.
kind of slows me down. Probably more likely to break an ankle, but
Yeah. Well, look, it's about 8:50,
yep.
and Beauty and the Beta starts in 10 minutes. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to wrap it up so we have
I,
time to go to the bathroom and pick up something to eat before Beauty and the Beta starts?
well, I already ate, so I don't care about no. But no, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
I think it's a good time. Yeah, Beauty and the Beta, Gulf Kitty, Scott Marsh, or Richard Talcott. It's a weekly Sunday show that, if you haven't seen it, with Matt Christensen and Normally Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. I enjoy it thoroughly. It's generally well thought out, and there's a link to Matt's channel down below. This time, as you probably heard, Blonde's out of town, so it'll be Roaming Millennial, aka Lauren Chen.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I think it's a good time to end the stream. And thanks for
Alrighty.
watching, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Let's see here.